amount of rage in there as well, you know, around it too. So yeah, so that's how I'm feeling about it.
Okay. All right. And so, Laverne Court, we're gonna move to you next. How does the murder of Breonna Taylor make you feel as a black woman in America?
Just like Robin said, but I think the better question would be how. I can't tell you how it didn't make me feel. I went through all of it. You know, it's once again we have a senseless killing. We once again we're unprotected. Once again there is no justice. Once again, and I look at it from all different angles. You know, I feel as a woman, a black woman in the predicament. I feel as a mother because her mother. I looked at the press conference yesterday. Her mother has to go through this. You know, everything that's going on, whenever there is anything going on, sometimes we can take a mental break, you know, withdraw from the news and withdraw from reading about it. And the families, they cannot withdraw from it because they're living it day in and day out. I'm heartbroken. And with every opportunity for this country, for this justice system to show itself and prove itself for us and to us, we're disappointed because once again, it shows that we have, in their eyes, no worth and no value. So I think right now I am in a state of anger because, you know, they keep telling us all the things that we could do and should do to make it right or to be presentable. We have an essential worker. Her job, her profession shows that she was a caring person. You don't want to be an EMT if you don't want to help people. So she lived her life to live and help other people. One of those things that they say, contribute to your society. She was going to do that. She was doing that. It didn't matter. 8 minutes. When I wake up in the morning, it takes me at least 10 minutes to get my bearings. 8 minutes from her door to her death. I'm heartbroken. I am.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Laverne. Deborah Highsmith, you said you don't want to go first, so now you're third. I'm not supposed to say that, right? I'm snitching, right? You're not supposed to snitches get stitches, right?
It's okay. I wasn't first. I'm okay. For myself, it makes you feel very unsafe. I think as a culture, we have struggled with trusting police anyway, but I also have a perspective where I think like, you know, when we're raised a certain way, I feel like I bought into the propaganda. I brought into the propaganda of if you do the right thing, if you are a law-abiding citizen, that when it is your moment to where you need protection, where you need the justice system, that it's going to be there for you. And time again, they keep showing that it's not. So for myself, it's like I'm frustrated with the fact of what do you do at this point? As a individual of color, what do we do at this point? So for myself, you could put every negative connotation that you would want to put on it as far as how it makes you feel, because I think we've all experienced all of those. Just at this particular point, I think it's about change. We just have to see a different perspective because, like, I personally feel like I was whitewashed. I really do. Not that I forgot that I was Black, because they never let you forget the fact that you're Black, but I just felt like I bought into the myth. So now that I see it from a different perspective, I want to figure out as an individual, what can I do to make a change? As an individual, what can I do to make sure somebody else doesn't have to go through the same thing that these other families had to go through? So, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Fire. Elaine India. Elaine, I'm calling you what you Elaine Spruill. How does it make you feel? How does the murder of Breonna Taylor make you feel to be a Black woman in America?
Well, definitely with everything that my fellow Black queens on this call have already said, you can't help but to feel every negative emotion, anger, rage, disbelief, even though we have lived in a society that has never favored Black people since the moment we stepped on the land. It still was unbelievable that this is our reality in 2020. So it made me feel as if my life was not valued. And as a Black woman who is the giver of all life, because we know that all life stems from Africa, that's scientific fact. It feels like America or certain practices have strategically been put in place to suffocate the life giver. So I feel like I am suffocating. I'm in a land that does not value me. It doesn't matter what I do, as my other sister said, whether I'm doing the right things, whether I'm being educated, whether I'm being a law abiding citizen. The certain practices have been put into play to suffocate me. And I think it's very obvious the power that Black people have in general, but specifically the mother. The mother is the heart of the family. So the Black woman is the heart of a country that does not love her. And I think that some people may feel like it's an opinion, but you can't dispute facts. You can't dispute the fact that an Australian woman was gunned down by a police officer and her family was given $55 million. Justine Diamond, you can look it up yourself, $55 million. But Breonna, who was asleep, minded her own business, that was also gunned down, was only generously, as they say, offered $12 million. That sends a shockwave of information to Black women that we're not valued. Even against another woman, we are considered the bottom when we are the top, the giver of all life. So it feels like I'm suffocating.
Mm-hmm. Whew. Carmen Gadsden. How does the death of Breonna Taylor make you feel as a Black woman in America? Oh, wait a minute. You must be on mute.
I'm just having all type of technical issues over in this end.
That's all right.
Good question. So for me, I constantly thought about, when the news came out, and I was feeling enraged as well, that this young lady lost her life in this situation, that, when cops raid homes, or they come in, and whatever the situation is, I always thought that they take accountability, that, or consideration, that there could be kids in the home or someone else, and living there, that they don't go in and shoot up places and things like that. But for me, it's like, okay, the when there were shots fired, and there was consistent bullets being thrown, it's like, okay, no one said, hey, stop. We have to make sure there's no children in the home other than the person that's living in that residence. And I kind of feel sad for her family that their daughter is not here to tell her side of the story, and to let everyone know that, hey, this is what happened. It could have been wrong, on all parties, of shooting multiple bullets, and there's no cameras showing what happened. And it's like, I don't even really know, like, why did it get to that point? And as a woman of color, a Black woman, are we safe in our own homes? I constantly think about it for my safety as well. My mom thinks about it, with her safety, that she arms herself, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should arm myself. And here it is, this person lost their life. Not only her, I think the young lady in Texas who was in her own home, and she wasn't sure who was that on the other side of her window. When she reached for her gun, they shot her, and she died instantly in her home. So it's like, okay, what do I do as a woman to protect myself in my home? So I'm, saddened not only by the Breonna Taylor, but also the other young lady that lost her life when a neighbor called the cops to check on her well-being, but she ended up losing her life as well. So it's a sad situation that I wouldn't want to see any family members to go through that I wish more details came out on this, and guns shouldn't be like the first thing that to draw out to shoot somebody. I don't know. I just didn't like the situation altogether.
Thank you very much. I tell you, I'm getting some awesome answers. Robin Donaldson, you're gonna choke me, because I started the broadcast after you stopped talking, so I'm gonna have to get your spot again. I gotta hear what you got this because you were just everybody was fire, and I think that a lot of times you never know. A lot of times we think that we're doing something, but God's hand is behind it, and just to hear, I mean, I'm tingling just to hear you guys. I never imagined that I would hear this kind of exchange. It's so awesome. And Robin, we're gonna ask you that same question again, and then we're gonna move on. But how does the murder of Breonna Taylor make you feel being a Black woman in America?
Yes, just pretty much echoing everyone else in that, the disbelief, like even though we know this has happened so many times where the court system doesn't give, Black people justice, and feeling unprotected and, powerless in some sense because these systems are failing us. And then, yeah, grief, sadness, anger, rage, all of those things. And it's just a constant, reminder of, we're not living in an equal society, and there's different rules and they're always being changed. So, but yeah, really sad and disappointed for Breonna and her family, more so than
Awesome.
anything.
And just segueing off what you just said, the inequities in our society, and it's crazy. It's like almost as if the scripture was written in the Bible where it says there's a great gulf fixed. And it almost seems as if there's a great gulf fixed that we can't get justice, and it's really crazy. And so we're gonna move into the next phase of our program here, and we're gonna start out with you, educator Lane Spruill. You smiling? You must know I was gonna call you, right? Yeah, you look like the old Cornell Johnson back in the old days. I'll tell you a little funny story, because I want to just get some light parts in here. I remember I was in home economics, and we had a teacher named Miss West, and I love peanut butter, and I took a spoonful of peanut butter and put it in my mouth. And Miss West said, "Son," said Cornell. I couldn't talk because I got that peanut butter in my mouth. I said, "Hmm." She said, "Son, do you hear me?" I said, "Hmm." She said, "Son, answer me." I said, I couldn't answer because I'm about to choke on the peanut butter. I'm about to do my best Scooby-Doo strategy. And so, it made me think about that, and just moving on. What an awesome program, what an awesome show. So Elaine, the question that I have to ask you as an educator, do you fear for the welfare of your students in the climate of these times?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I pride myself on being the children's second mom. So I spend most of the day with them when their parents are not there, and that's the attitude that I take while I'm at school. So from a mother's point of view and a teacher's point of view, you're fearful that anytime they walk out the door, you lose an opportunity. And it could be an opportunity to see them again. It could be an opportunity for them to see me again. They will lose an opportunity to have a Black educator that speaks life into them, first of all. And we understand how important that is because studies have shown that if a Black child has a Black teacher by third grade, they're 13% more likely to go to college. And if they have two, then it's 32%. Okay, more likely to go to college. But they lose that opportunity to learn about how powerful they are, what geniuses they are, how they're capable of anything, how they can be anything that they want to be. but their Black skin will not only be a blessing, but it could also be a curse. So I've had to have very hard conversations with my students, because I do have a passion for behavior students. And one thing that I've told them, especially our Black students, is we can't afford to go outside and behave in some of the manners that we see some of our counterparts behave. We don't have the luxury to question authority. We don't have the luxury to sleep in our beds at night peacefully. We don't have the luxury to go to the store for a bag of Skittles. Okay, we don't have the luxury of turning lanes in a car and not putting our signal on. As a Black person, you don't have that luxury. So it's a lot of fear that plays into your mental health as a Black educator, and worrying about your own children, your own family, but your students and their families that are greatly affected. Just in normal educating settings, we have to deal with students that lose parents or grandparents, fathers are murdered, or someone is incarcerated, and there's a lot of actions or reactions rather that take place because of those issues alone. So when you add that onto what society is showing them, it counters everything that we're teaching them as a Black teacher. You know, it counters everything that we're saying about how powerful, how genius you are. You can be anything that you want to be, but know that that Black skin might be a hindrance to what you're trying to become.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Deborah Highsmith, you and I have been in the trenches on Facebook. A lot of times we're learning some things about people that we went to school with.
Yeah.
We never knew. It definitely has been a nice word is enlightening. I'll just go ahead and say it like that. It's been enlightening. And so I ask you this question. Is there a lack of empathy and understanding among some Americans towards these recurring atrocities in the Black community? And why are so much people indifferent?
You know, I honestly think I have an ex-neighbor that is a 45 supporter. And I will say, just, with talking to him, I think they just don't know. They just don't get it. And my question when I meet or have a conversation with other people, especially people who are not of color, is how many Black and brown people do you have in your circle? If you have no immediate Black and brown people in your circle, you cannot relate to the challenges that they have. You might, work with them and you spend that couple hours at work with them, and then you still go to your world and your world looks like you. So if you don't socialize or really connect with a person of color, I just think they just don't really get it. And I was talking to this particular person the other night. Actually, me and my two daughters were on the phone with this particular person. And, we were having the conversation, and, my daughter, she's in her 20s. So she was in her defensive mode. She was in that Marine mode of, she kept telling him, well, you're not Black, so you're not going to never get it. You're never going to wear black face, so you're never going to get it. So I take it from the approach of, you have to educate them. You have to come at it from a perspective of, the more you tell them, the more you try to educate them, then maybe they might understand. You might have to have 20 or 30 conversations with that person, and you're hoping that at some point they might understand. With this particular person, I'm still getting there. And like I said, we were next door neighbors. So we interacted on a regular basis. We ate dinner together. I watched his kids. We all interacted with each other. So still to this point, though, he doesn't get it because he doesn't have to live it. So I think that at this particular point, when I'm dealing with those particular people, I try to come at it from an understanding perspective that, let me teach you what I do know. I'm not saying I know it all. I don't say that I have the right answer, but I'm having the conversation. That's, to me, is what I can do. I can have the conversation.
Awesome. And I was just listening to you, and it sounded like after you finish or if you accomplish your goal, it'll be like, Ms. Deborah, you the miracle. It almost seems like, yeah, you just have to keep on plugging. You have to keep on plugging. Miss Laverne Cords, is killing unarmed Black people trending, and why?
I've been given that question a lot of thought, and I think it's not a new thing. I think the awareness of it, the documentation of it, the information is getting out there further, quicker. That's the trending part of it. It's been happening. This is not a new thing. It's not as terrible as 2020 has been for historical reasons. This is not a 2020 thing. It's not 10 years ago. It's always been happening. But technology has caught up with the actions. And we're putting people on blast. The atrocities aren't being hidden, swept under the rug, kept in those cities. It's reaching far and wide. So it's not a new thing. The knowledge of it is the trending part of it. This is not new. And it's so disheartening. As I was listening to Deborah, we have all been in that position where we're talking to someone who doesn't know, because you can't blame someone when they truly don't know. If you're not living it, if you've not been exposed to it, you will not know. Our conversations will help them, but they have to be open to it. They have to listen, be empathetic, and realize that just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not happening. So I'm sorry, take away from that. My mind was just going on that as she was talking. We've all been in that opportunity where we have an opportunity to educate someone. So we need to take advantage of it. But no, the killing is not a new thing. It's our knowledge of it. And the unarmed is the target. When Carmen was speaking earlier, as the question is, should we arm ourselves? Yeah, we definitely should. We definitely should. At least that gives you a chance to fight back. And it's an absolute shame that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we have to be in fight mode. There used to be a time when you come home and close your door, that's your place of peace and sanctity, and you knew you would be all right. Breonna and others like her, we're not even safe in our own homes. So yeah, we need to become armed. We become a target when we're not. We become a target when we're doing the right thing. We become a target when we're not doing the right thing. We've been trending for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons, because the people in power, the people who have to perceive power and control, they're not valuing us. So the care and the concern isn't taken. If you are executing a search warrant, you can do it with care and compassion. You can do it with care of who may be in there, not knowing who, in addition to the target that you have on your paperwork, because we know that paperwork can be wrong. When they're immune to the victims that they're going after, we're going to become the trend. And it's become a red mark on the back of our backs, unfortunately.
Can I interject something here, Cornell?
Please.
Part of my concern is, I think that when it comes to dealing with the police officers, it's been my thought for years. When they pull over somebody that looks like them, they relate to it as this could be their uncle, this could be their dad, this could be their brother, their sister. It could be a family member for them. So they can relate to that person. When it's a person of color, that disconnect is there for them. So they cannot relate to it. That's why there's no value to the moment, because somewhere in their processing of doing their job, they turn that part of their brains off when they're dealing with somebody of color. That's just how I have been seeing it over the years. I just think that they can't relate to a person of color, so they just turn that off. But when it's somebody that looks like them, because over the years, it's always been that, let's use Dylan Roof. Why is it that he was able to be alive after that? Because they want to know why. They want to know why he did what he did. When it comes to a person of color that could do something vicious or criminal, they don't want to know why. It's an automatic, they're guilty of it. Okay, let's go. That's just one less I have to deal with. But that's just how I view it. But that's my 2 cents on that part. I just wanted to piggyback off of that.
That's awesome.
Now, can I support my sister and Deborah and I think I'm sorry I forgot the other one's name and what they were.
Yes,
Laverne.
yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what you guys were saying, and I think that's why it is imperative that we advocate for police officers to have relationships in the communities that they are serving and supposedly protecting. Because, like she said, when you have a personal connection to the people you're serving, then there's a certain type of empathy that goes along with that. So one practice, for example, I've typically taught in Title I schools, and they usually want the teachers to drive around the neighborhood and just kind of see where some of the living conditions are of your students. And that kind of produces empathy for some of the teachers that have never seen those type of conditions or been around a certain dynamic or demographic rather. But I think that is definitely key in what needs to happen with our police officers. For one, we need more Black police officers, teachers, politicians, judges, and everything, but that's a whole nother conversation. But we definitely need to advocate those relationships with police officers. In my own county, I would see police officers in the libraries, in the grocery stores, interacting with my children. So it's very difficult when I raised them to, of course, be respectful of authority and had positive relationships with the police officers in my county, for them to digest what is going on now when they look at on the TV and see a different picture being painted there. So there's definitely power in building those relationships within the community that you serve, because like she said, when they stop us, they're already on ends. They treat us as if we're savages, if we're just the type of people that are violent and just do things without thought. But if we look at the history of this country, we're not the savage ones. And I'll just say that as politely as I can. But we're not the savage ones. We are not the ones that have we're not the people that over the whole history of time have caused the things that the Bible describes the devil's purposes for, to steal, kill, and destroy. When we look at history, there's a certain type of people that have done that ever since they've come to this earth, not just to Black people, every people that they have encountered. And it is not Black people. But sometimes it's difficult for you to look in the mirror and face your own demons. So it's easier to project it on something that you deem as a threat. Even if the threat is not a violent threat, it could be a more powerful threat. It may be a more intelligent threat. When we look at the history of civilization and the fact that we as Black people taught those said people how to manage when they were not able to and were living in caves wherever they were at that time. So rock on, sisters, I agree. That's the short version of what you all said.
I'll tell you something, Elaine. India, you gave them the jug by the handle. Like my grandmother would say, that's the jug by the handle. Yeah, that's the jug by the handle right there. I'm just learning so much. I'm absorbing everything, and I'm so thankful that you guys are on the show today. A term I learned working with the Biden campaign, we sat around and we talk a lot. And Lauren Kerner, a friend of mine, Robbie, you know Lauren, I love Lauren, from Montana. Lauren Kerner taught me the term gaslighting. Well, I never knew what gaslighting was, but it has become one of my favorite words because gaslighting allowed me to identify a lot of things. Gaslighting, you know, the psychological manipulation, making the villain, the victim rather, feel like the villain. When you say something like, he was a drug dealer, there was a drug deal, they were justified on breaking the door and killing her, you know, or when they tried to dirty up her name, and when they were not able to dirty up Breonna Taylor's name, they had to go ahead and they gave $12 million, you know, and that's like they put that in the offering basket. So they're saying, put a Band-Aid on it. They're millionaires now. And so it's okay, you know, but that $12 million is not helping Breonna Taylor. She had a life before all of this. And so with that in mind, Robin Donaldson, because I'm a preacher, we long-winded. We go all the way around, and the Lord said, but with that in mind, at one time, Dr. Martin Luther King, the Christian Coalition, and the Civil Rights Movement were villains. How did Breonna Taylor, Black Lives Matter, and the Black community become villains in this scenario?
Well, I mean, it's a system of white supremacy, so I have a slightly different, point of view. I'm from the south suburbs of Chicago, and Chicago has a long history of police brutality. I mean, just even thinking about this whole thing of being shot, in your sleep. Fred Hampton, activist, Black Panther in Chicago, young man, very dynamic, ended up being killed in his sleep by police, as well as the federal government was in on it too. There was a chief of police, or he was the chief war commander, John Burge, in Chicago. He was torturing Black men for, decades, his precinct. I'm formerly an attorney. I went to school, law school in Chicago. So I'm dating myself here, but about, more than 20 years ago, there was Amadou Diallo in Brooklyn, New York, Sean Bell. These were the names, when I was coming up in my, in my 20s. But during that time, there was a huge movement in Chicago to end the death penalty and bring a moratorium on the death penalty. And that's actually how I first heard of Barack Obama, because he was a state senator at that time, and he was part of a large coalition of people and organizations who were trying to have a moratorium on the death penalty, because it was about 10 Black men who were on death row, and there was all this evidence saying that they, weren't guilty. And the same police officer who had been doing the torturing in the police department, they all came, I think, through that police department. And eventually, I don't even think this man is in jail. He may or may not be, but I know he ended up leaving Chicago and going to Florida, at some point to try to escape charges. But anyway, it's a system, and white people are aware of it. This thing that white people, I mean, yes, white people can't know exactly what it's like to be a Black person and this and that, but the reason they don't have a lot of Black or brown friends or people over their house, or the neighborhoods they live in, or where they send their kids to school, those are conscious choices that they make, to be around other white people. I've also had the fortune of being around a lot of, more progressive white people, and they make conscious choices not to go and live in these all white, areas and send their, kids to a certain school. They'll make a conscious choice to live in a more diverse area. So, yes, they don't know exactly what it's like to walk in our shoes, but they're also very aware of, the inequalities. And it's just they have that privilege to be able to decide of how, when they want to pay attention to it, or how deep they want to be involved in it, and, things like that. And I've grown up and had, very intimate relationships with white people, with, whether they're coming over my house, my house was kind of a house where, a lot of people growing up, would come over my house and everything, and, or vice versa. And, I've seen from my own experience that, you can come up, age 5 years old, and, be at each other's houses for family reunions, for Christmas, for this and that. And then there can come to a point where they choose to now live in their white world and lean into their racism, that, I mean, I've seen that happen, with, several friends of mine and things like that. So it's a system. And I mean, they're a victim of the system too, because they're under this delusion that they're, superior in some way, because that's what they've been taught and told, and it's been reinforced. So no one is winning, under this, this white supremacist system. That's what it is. And so when I think about like law school, it starts there. I mean, I had, and it's not, just limited to, color, because you have, yes, we might need more, people of color to be police officers and people to be involved in the community, but it's also the culture of policing. And I remember, my first year of law school, there was a Latino man who was in class with me, and he came in, and he was kind of bragging about, some type of, search or something that they did, in a predominantly Black, poor neighborhood in Chicago. And, he said that they busted into this family's house like on Christmas Eve or and he was bragging about it. And he thought, I guess, because we're all in law and everything, that I would be impressed, or I would think that this was, an interesting story. So, I mean, it starts there. Like a lot of the police officers I knew more than likely were going down the prosecutorial route. Maybe some would go into defense. And, even when you just kind of like, look at the way, it's set up, it's a system. And so we have to start dismantling this system, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take, and it's going to, we need Black people to help. We need all kinds, of people to help. But it's a system of power, and it's, and unfortunately it's not limited to party. It's not limited to race. It's a system of power that we have to start deconstructing and dismantling. And the best way to understand that is through community building, and then, knowing who is in these positions of power to make these decisions. And that's, because with Breonna Taylor, no-knock warrants, that's something that I think that's like in 40 states, immunity for these police officers, the police unions, the police foundations, the corporations who support. Some of these same corporations who are saying Black Lives Matter and running, these, gorgeous, beautiful commercials of unity and this and that. Some of these same corporations are funding these police foundations. And those police foundations give money to the police unions. And that's how this military equipment and surveillance equipment gets into our communities. So again, it's just important to understand that we're looking at a system of power here where it's, white supremacy, and, even, it can still affect people who aren't Black, at the same time too. But to pretend, or like, people know, and I'll just wrap up here. Jane Elliott, I think she's an older white lady who's been talking and teaching about race for years. And she shows, if you go on YouTube, maybe you can find some of her stuff, but she's in a room with all white people, and she asked them, something like, how many of you, would like rather be Black or want to switch places with a Black person? And nobody raised their hand. And she said, you don't want to raise your hand. You don't want to do that because what comes with being a Black person is all these other inequalities. So they know, and it's just getting harder to look away because of the video, because of social media, and because I do feel like some white people's consciousness is starting to raise, around this issue too. So those are my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Awesome. Whew, thank you so much. Awesome. Deborah Highsmith, how did the United States' current racial climate contribute to the death of Breonna Taylor?
Oh, wow. Well, I think it's everything we've already been talking about. The foundation had already been laid. There is no value. Well, there's value if it helps others that don't look Black and brown. There's value to an African American life. But I think it's just always been there from whenever we were brought over as slaves. It's just always been there. I just think that over time, people have learned how to, the same way as a culture, like, as Black people, we're taught certain things. We're taught how to blend into Caucasian society, that thing that we would do. Well, I didn't even know it existed until a friend of mine from Tennessee taught me, where, you show the palm of your hand in the palm of your hand when you're referring to white people, or the back of your hand when you're referring to Black people. We are taught that, that have more education than they have, that, you got to work twice as hard. You got to get to work early. You got to stay later than they. We are taught all those things so that we can be better people, so we can set ourselves up a different way, a better way, financially, socially, in Caucasian America. They are taught something totally different. They are taught that over the years that Black people have been beneath them, And like she was saying earlier, yeah, you have some progressive white folks who they really just don't see it that way. They understand what's happening. But then the majority, they benefit from it. They benefit from Black people, be it entertainment, be it, I don't know, like with the athletes. Yeah, like she was saying earlier, they put these commercials together. Oh yeah, man, I've seen so many watching the NBA playoffs, let me just tell you. And I'm saying to myself, but I also know that you are taking some of your money as a corporation and placing it other places. So you understand what we contribute to society, but however it best benefits them is what they use to prosper. They have a system that works for them. They understand it. They see it. It's there. But they have learned to work within us to profit from us. Whereas up to a point, I think we've just always been taught to prosper within them. Now we need to get to a point where we can prosper beyond them. So I don't know. I just think it's just always been there.
Awesome. Just to segue off what you said, you matter if you're catching touchdowns. You know, you matter if you're packing stadiums. You matter if you're hitting home runs. You matter if you know your GPA doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if you're Breonna Taylor. You know, as long as we give you $12 million, we couldn't dirty your name up. You know, we couldn't besmirch you, and so we'll just give them $12 million, and you're supposed to put a Band-Aid on it, and you don't matter. And so, Carmen Gadsden, because we're getting ready to close here. We've had such an awesome forum. You ladies have made my first show such a success. Oh, awesome. Carmen Gadsden, from a religious perspective, is it easy? Is it easy to forgive your enemy?
Ooh, the human side will block them. That's me all the time. But at the same time, I try to look at it from a biblical standpoint, what Jesus would want me to do. I remember one time I was reading my Bible, and I have it open right now, Proverbs 15:1. And the whole day, Proverbs 15:1 kept going through my mind. And I'm like, why am I, this scriptures keep going over and over and over. And I was like, I bet you I'm going to have to use this. And a couple of days later, I encountered a conversation with a guy, and he was being negative, and instantly Proverbs 15:1 came to mind. I was like, oh, this is when I'm going to have to use that verse. And so it says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir anger. And so when that verse came back to mind, I was like, okay. I said, all right, well, if we did this, would it make a difference? And then somehow the phone call hung up, and then he called me back and he apologized and everything. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. I just wanted to get your perspective on it, and that's all I needed the help for. But thank you anyway. And even while I was on the phone with him, he wanted to, like, I don't know, he could have gave me free stuff after that. And I was like, okay, so Proverbs 15:1 actually does help. So I think, just sometimes putting aside, well, for me, putting aside my fleshly desire, wanting to go after the person and to see, from a biblical standpoint, what Jesus would want me to do. Because, two wrongs, like my mom always say, two wrongs don't make a right. And sometimes someone have to be the bigger person in a situation. So that's, for myself, biblically speaking, that verse there helped me out in a lot of situations. When I'm having a conversation with someone, even it was about the Breonna Taylor, I could tell that they wanted to just argue me down. And I'm like, but blah, 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 this and that. And it was like, but I don't think you're, I'm like, okay, I hear you, but hear me out, so using that verse kind of like helped me to calm myself down so I don't get excited because they're excited as well. So I look at that verse as my verse to any issue and arguments or situations that can be de-escalated before it can escalate. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Lady, last question. I'm not going to put a name on it. I'm just going to throw it out there. In the words of Casey Lattisaw, I'm telling my age, Casey Lattisaw, where do we go from here?
Vote. I mean, we have to just start there. Definitely, because that's the power, which is why there's so many efforts to undermine voting and to take that power away. And we can look, throughout history and again, mostly Black people, but not only Black people, women and Native American, Indigenous, immigrants, who become citizens here. All these roadblocks that are in place is because your vote has power. So voting, organizing, continuing to build community and continue to have those conversations, but to change those laws and put people in charge who are more caring and empathetic and hold them accountable. That's the best thing that we could do, from the local level on up. So I definitely encourage everybody to register to vote, and vote early.
Thank you very much.
And I would agree. Yes, we definitely have to vote. I've had conversations, many conversations, and I know people, especially our people, our Black people, are really frustrated and they feel as if their voice doesn't count. But I always encourage them, you don't stop fighting. Don't stop fighting. When you don't vote, you're just giving up the fight. We have to keep going, keep pushing. So definitely vote. But in addition to that, I think in the more immediate and compact areas, we also should take advantage of any opportunity we have to be that voice. As Deborah was saying earlier, some of our upbringing, we've been taught to, kind of, she didn't use the word, but conform. You blend in, you do the right thing, and then you can be a part of the group. Times are so down that we need to take advantage of our opportunity when we have the conversation, be the voice. Unfortunately, I found myself more times than not, especially in professional settings, to be the only. So I have to be that voice. And I don't ever take that opportunity lightly, especially as I've gotten older. As you approach an age, you don't mince your words. You're still careful and appropriate, but you don't mince your words as much. So I'm embracing that as I'm the oldest one on my staff now, and I take advantage of it to be that voice of wisdom. We're not what we used to be. And times, the unrest that we're seeing now, it's been bubbling for so long. So we need to take advantage, keep this fire going, take every opportunity we can to be a part of that change and be a part of the progress. Everything that we're doing now is setting the stage for our children and our grandchildren. So we can't let them down.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to piggyback on what my beautiful sisters, aren't they beautiful? Look at the women on this call. Wow. Beauty and brains. That's that Black excellence right there. But I just want to just piggyback on what they said. And voting is definitely the first start, but not just presidential. Since I've been 18, I voted in every single election, even locally. And I think that's where we kind of miss the mark, because sometimes we will come out in droves and we will vote for presidential elections, but the real power is your local government. Okay, because like my sister said before, you can have Black police officers and judges and politicians, but the laws is where everything happens. So it's very important that we also vote in our local government. And be a voice, as my sister said. For the first 2 years in this county, I was the only Black teacher in the entire school from 3s to 5th grade, and best believe they heard my voice. Okay, so do not conform yourself. Be unapologetically Black. Continue to support Black businesses beyond this, and seek them out, even if you have to go 30 miles and pay $2 extra for that pack of hair you got in your head. Do that. because that's the type of support that our counterparts have been receiving from the beginning of time, and it has given them an advantage. And also another thing too is, if you're speaking from the biblical point, as my sister pointed out before, it's great to pray and forgive and all those things, but you don't have to forget. Forgive and forget is not biblical. You don't have to forget. You need to hold people accountable. And I think that that has kind of been a disservice to us as Black people, because we're praying P-R-A-Y-I-N-G, and our counterparts are praying P-R-E-Y-I-N-G. So even in biblical times, they had to march, they had to fight. David was still smart enough to have a slingshot. So we need to empower ourselves and get over those fears and protect ourselves, become armed, take those fire safety classes, okay? Support Black businesses, get yourself together financially, understand that this is warfare on all accounts. And when you're when you are in a war, you have to prepare yourself with the armor. And Black people have to prepare ourselves for war, because that's what we're facing.
I just want to thank Deborah Highsmith. I want to thank Laverne Courts. I want to thank Carmen Gadsden, counselor Robin Donaldson. I never knew that. And educator Elaine Spruill. I want to thank you guys for coming on the Moral Compass, for making this first show, thebomb.com. And I'm going to have the same group back again. Believe that, because just awesome. Just awesome. I want to thank you, and to everyone out there, you heard, take in what you heard today. Take in what you heard today. Breonna Taylor is gone, but we must fight. We must keep fighting. Get out there and vote. Jamie Harrison, get out there and vote. The presidential election, Joe Biden. We cannot take another 4 years. That's where our power is. Get out and vote, everybody. We want to thank you for tuning into our show today. We hope you have an awesome Saturday. Thank you, ladies, for giving me all of your time on Saturday. I love all of you. And this has been the Moral Compass, and I'm Cornell Johnson. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Have a good one.